Okay, ladies and gentlemen, without hesitation, we're going to go ahead and kick off this STEAM event here at Locke College Prep Academy. Yeah, I'm excited to have all you guys here with me today. So, today is a great day for our community and for our students. What's special about it for me is we have students that sit in the classrooms every day and they're learning math, they're learning science, engineering classes, robotics, but they don't necessarily understand how that equates to the real world and to job opportunities once they exit high school and middle school and etc. So today is an opportunity for our kids to see the awesome things that they can do with what they're learning in school. So there's going to be opportunities for them to build race cars, bottle rockets, planes, and test them in a wind tunnel, and much, much more today. So I'm really excited, and I just want to thank all of you for being here and helping us put this event on. It took a lot of people to make this happen, and I'm going to name just a few here and a few of our corporate sponsors. First, I want to name Northrop Grumman. They have helped us to pick up the cost of a lot of this. They're the ones that are footing the bill for breakfast and lunch today. And Sharonda from Northrop Grumman arrived here yesterday at 12 to help set up this room, and she's been working really hard. So I wanted to give a big shout out to her. Other partners, yeah. Inglewood Pacific chapter of the Lynx Incorporated, a big sponsor of the event. Raytheon, Torrance Refinery, UCLA, USC, City Year, Los Angeles Urban League Young Professionals, NSBE, the Locke Band, Mr. Stickman and Mr. O'Connor, our band directors, Miss Shay Brown, who is putting the logistics together for much of this with their hard work, Mr. Osaseri, who's helping put a lot of this together, and Mr. Kennelly, our engineering teacher, who's in the back and has some of the projects our high school students have been working on to show you all. So today we're going to have different breakout sessions that you can go to, and we just want to enjoy this beautiful day, ask questions. There's a lot of young professionals here that if you're a young child in this room and you want to know, how can I become an engineer? How can I work on rockets? How can I work on space telescopes? How can I get into a career like that? Please ask the questions. We're going to have a panel up here that's going to be giving you guys some more insight. It's going to be an exciting day. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up Brianna, who's kind of our master of ceremonies here, and she will be the next up to speak to you.
Hi everybody, my name is Brianna Gooden, and I'm the president of LA Urban Young Professionals. And we wanted to thank you guys and welcome you guys to coming to our National Day of Service. This is an event that happens nationwide every single year around the country. And so we are like one of 60 chapters that puts on this event. So just to let you guys know a little bit about the Urban League, we've been around over 100 years, and our affiliate has been around for 97. And the mission of it is to enable African Americans and other minorities to secure economic self-reliance, parity, power, and civil rights through advocacy activities and the provision of programs and services in our uniquely diverse community. So we happen to be an auxiliary of the LA Urban League, and we're 21 to 40-year-olds. And so we do a lot of community service events like this around the country, around the year and around the city. So we wanted to thank you guys so much for coming, and we'll go ahead and start our panel discussion. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amber Griffin. I am Vice President for the LA Urban League Young Professionals. And again, I would like to thank you all for coming out. We're very grateful that you showed up. I know it's very hard to make it on a Saturday morning, but we are grateful that you all came out. We hope that you get the best out of this full day that we have planned for you all. And now we're going to start our panel discussion. I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves. But to my right, I have ZEAHLOT Lopez, who will be here speaking with you all. I also have Dr. Clarence Agby, who's here, and I have Mrs. Jamaica Aaron Green. She has also agreed to be here with you guys as well. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and let you all introduce yourselves.
Good morning, everyone. Can I have a good morning? My name is ZEAHLOT Lopez. I am a Spanish-speaking mental health professional, and I'm here today because one of the sciences that we sometimes set apart from others is the science of human behavior. And without mental health, it's impossible to do other things. So today, I'm extremely excited to talk to you about mental health and mental hygiene.
Hello, hello. My name is Clarence Agby. I'm originally from New York City. You know, shout out to any New Yorkers in the house. I'm currently a data scientist. I used to work for Northrop Grumman. Shout out to Northrop. And for anybody who's interested, data science is basically about, it's kind of like CSI for like numbers, right? So you're trying to find patterns and find new mysterious things or puzzles, try to figure out puzzles basically. So we can, well, you know, I'm excited to be here too. We'll talk about that, talk about engineering. If anybody's interested in like software engineering, electrical engineering, breaking stuff, making stuff, inventing stuff, hit me up. All right.
Good morning. Thank you guys for allowing me to be on this panel. It looks like I'm in great company. My name's Shamika Green Aaron. I actually just moved back to LA last Friday. So Sharonda has been working hard to get these panelists up here. So thank you for inviting me to speak. I am the Director of Technology for Nike Los Angeles and Hurley. Nike has a couple of companies. Hurley is one of them. It's our surf sport company. We also own Converse. So we're doing some great work here in Los Angeles. We're grateful to be a part of the community. And my area of expertise is actually cybersecurity, but technology is a huge part of that, and STEM is a huge part of that. So I look forward to engaging with you guys and hearing from you guys and hearing your questions about how you can join our incredible community of STEM professionals.
Great, thank you for those introductions. So our first question that we have for you guys is, how did you choose your career? Did you always know what you wanted to do, or did you have a specific experience that motivated you to enter into your career?
So since the microphone's closest to me. So I don't think I chose the career. I think the career chose me. I'm about to date myself, but that TV show MacGyver, that was totally me. I would fix anything in our house, vacuum cleaners, the VCR, whatever would break, plumbing, it didn't matter. I've always been a tinkerer. And I was fortunate to be able to go to magnet schools. I'm from the Bay Area originally, and so I was fortunate to be able to go to some really great schools that were focused around STEM. And then after I graduated from high school, I went into the Navy, and I was there for 10 years. And it was during that time that I focused on information technology and started to specialize in cybersecurity. I was there for 10 years, and then I went to Lockheed Martin. So I'm amongst family with Raytheon and Northrop Grumman here. And so I was there for 10 years also. And then 2 years ago, I decided that I wanted to figure out what there was in the world of STEM outside of aerospace and defense. And so I thought, you know, sport, there's a lot of science around sport and athleticism. And we spend a ton of time looking at consumer insights, data science, the science of how we do what we do, and that's when I joined Nike. And so it's been an incredible experience, but it definitely, the field chose me, and I think passion is what keeps me here.
So for myself, I guess the biggest piece that got me into my career was just being curious, right? So from an early age, I was always like tinkering with stuff, like how does this work? How do you build that? And then I was fortunate to have parents that would take me to stuff like this, where we would go and experience, you know, how do you make a wind tunnel, or how do you, you know, have pop rocket bottles or whatever, I don't know. And so always thinking about how do things work, why is this happening, how can I make things happen? That's kind of what drove me to my career. So For me, I was always good at math and science. Ended up doing like physics and chemistry, biology, all of that stuff. When I got to college, I basically decided on engineering because that was the most interesting to me. I didn't even know if I would like it, but I was like, let me take a couple classes and see, if this is something that I could do. And it turned out it was something that I liked, and I kept going with it, and eventually became a software engineer till now that I'm a data scientist, so, yeah.
Great.
My story is a little different, and I think I could definitely relate to my colleagues here in regards to the purpose and passion. I was a hairdresser, or still am, for 13 years. In the state of California, in 2005, I was the youngest cosmetologist licensed for California. And because of that, I was a hairdresser, I was a barber, I was doing weaves, I was doing highlights. And when I talked to people, I was like, wait a minute, they're not coming for the service, they're not coming for their highlights, their fade, they're coming to talk to me. I'm their therapist. So it hit me that that was my true passion and purpose. That is when I was like, okay, I need to go back to school, to graduate school. Throughout being a hairdresser, I put myself through college 100%. My parents made just enough not to qualify for free education and not enough to pay for my own. So I worked 2 jobs, and I put myself through school. And then when I got into graduate school, as a Latina that speaks Spanish, coming from a humble home, I was a kid, we didn't know where the last meal was gonna come from because my parents worked 12 hours a day and they came to this country undocumented. And that made my hustle strong. So that's what put me through graduate school. And what led me to the career I have now as a family therapist is the conflict we all have inside our families. A lot of people like to think like, oh, I'm good, I'm fine. But internally, we all have conflicts, or we crave that inner connection with our grandma, with our moms, with our dad. Raise your hands, who has a difficult mom in here? Who has a difficult mom? There we go, exactly. Who's had a hard day and you need to vent? Who's had a hard day? Everybody. I'll tell you one thing, and I hope this stays with you. If you didn't take a shower for 1 day, you all right. You don't take a shower for 2 days, you're gonna think about it. 3 days, nobody's gonna wanna get next to you. And that's what we call personal hygiene. But nobody tells you about mental hygiene. Mental hygiene is the ability to have this up here clear. So I want you to think about how important that is moving forward in your career, in your life, in your relationships. This is my passion. Until the day I become a mother and wife, this right here, my career, this is it for me. And that's why I chose my career.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Passion is definitely, very important in choosing your career, as well as, having your career choose you. You may have an idea of what you want to do, but until you, start taking those classes and, start talking to different people, then that's really when you find out, okay, this is really where I should be, and then these are the steps that I should take to get there. So with that being said, our next question will be, what did you do to study, in order to prepare you for entering into that career? What classes, should these students be focusing on, to get into engineering or IT or, mental health therapy? What are the different courses they should take?
I would say for the engineering route, you definitely want to focus on your math science classes, right? So, algebra, what's, 2x equals 12, what's x, right? A lot of it can be scary for a lot of people, but it doesn't have to be, and that's kind of why we're up here, right? To kind of show you that just because, things are hard doesn't mean that you can't get there. We definitely had hardships growing up. It was hard for me to study calculus, pre-calc, geometry, whatever. But those are kind of the steps and the building blocks to get you from point A to here at this table, right? And then I would also say, ask your teachers questions. What, based off of what you're interested in, right? I know a lot of women, for example, they're like, oh, I like makeup, I like this kind of thing or whatever. And I'm like, have you thought about chemical engineering? Have you thought about what goes into making like makeup products? You know, what are the different powders and things to make foundation? What are the things that you need to mix? For guys, it's like, oh, well, you know, I want to play sports, I want to make music. Have you ever thought about like being a sound engineer? Have you thought about what it takes to, you know, the physics of actually shooting a basketball? Or like when people play, you know, how much stress are you putting in your knees so that, you know, if your knees break, you know, how can you replace it? Can you build a prosthetic knee? Can you build a fake knee? You know, these are the kinds of things that people don't necessarily think about now, but taking classes like I said, physics, just the basic biology, physics, chemistry, math, will get you there eventually. And then obviously your own drive, your own passion. So figure out what it is you're passionate about and then kind of ask around. Your teachers will help guide you, figure out what classes you should take. But I would say start with the basics. What about you guys? Go ahead.
So my story is a little different because I was in high school kicking it super hard. And so I did not get good grades. What that meant for me is that when I graduated, I didn't have, you know, a ton of choices. And I didn't really, even though I have 2 college-educated parents, they kind of let me just, you know, do whatever, kind of find my way. And so that's how I ended up in the military. But it felt like as soon as I got through boot camp, my dad started leaning on me about going to college. And so, basically, going into the military and getting trained that way, it's the equivalent of going to like vocational school. And so that was where my initial training came from, was through information technology in the military. And then I got stationed in San Diego, and I am such an advocate of the community college system. I went through San Diego City College. And I went there because it was affordable, and the teachers were incredibly supportive, and I spent probably 3 or 4 years going to San Diego City College and Mesa College. And when I graduated from there, I went on to the University of Massachusetts Lowell, and that's how I got my undergraduate degree. And during that time of going to college, I got Microsoft certifications, I got cyber certifications, and so, I mean, what I'm saying to you is that there are a lot of ways to do this. There are a lot of people in our industry who have non-traditional educations as well as traditional educations. The thing for me that was important is that I knew that eventually I wanted to go the leadership route. And in order to do that, I needed to have my degree. And so that's kind of what drove me to eventually finish college. But what I'll say is that don't be discouraged. It's super important to know that your journey is yours and yours alone. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. Because if you had told me, 10 years ago, before you turn 40, you'll be the director of technology for a Fortune 100 company, I would have never, ever, ever believed that. And that I would get to do these kinds of things with people that I come from in a place that's very similar to my own home, I would never have believed that either. And so, even though your journey may be non-traditional like mine, it's yours, and embrace it because your journey is important, and what you have to contribute to a community like ours is important. We absolutely need diversity in engineering and in STEM fields. It makes us better, and it makes the work that we do better. And so, and companies that have diversity outperform companies that don't. So we really need you guys to come and join our field. So don't think about the challenges, think about, hey, what am I gonna do differently? How am I gonna wrap my mind around what needs to happen for me?
And then one last thing to add, this reminded me of a point. If you don't see something in school that you're looking for, definitely ask, definitely Google. There's stuff outside. So little plug, we have things like Nesby Jr., right? We have after school programs. So just look out for those kinds of things.
Ditto on what they said. So I wish I had kicked it more in high school. I was the straight A student all the time because, as I mentioned earlier, my parents came from a very humble background, and I remember their vision. Their vision was my father coming to this country to give his daughters a better opportunity, a better life that he didn't have in his own country. So in high school, I did the test where it tells you what you should do, right? Like, okay, your personality, what you're good at, and all that. So the top 3 things I got, the number 1 was a cosmetologist. So that fit. And funny enough, number 2 was a therapist. But number 3 was a funeral director. I think I dodged a bullet. So I definitely did not become a funeral director. And what helped me really understand the classes to take in college is life experience. There is no better lesson than life. They say that in the classroom, you get the lesson first, and then you get the test. But in life, you get the test first, and then you get the lesson, if you're open to it. When I started college, I was sad. I was sad because I had worked so hard to get into a 4-year university, a UC, a Cal State, renowned known school, which I did get into, but my parents wouldn't sign for my loans because you see, in my family, we don't borrow money we don't have, and I cried. So I went to community college, and today, 8 years later, I'm thankful for that because it gave me the opportunity to explore options. When I started college, I had declared myself for mental hygiene, science, right? Because I had braces and I loved them. My orthodontist, he was cute, and I thought I could do this. And I took anatomy, I failed. Straight A student, I failed anatomy in college. Then I took biology, I got a D. That was not for me. But I love science. I'm naturally curious, but about human behavior. And then I took a psychology class, and I didn't understand the science behind it, taking the data, why people do what they do. Pavlov, he examined people through dogs. I loved it. I fell in love. And what I definitely recommend to you as students, as adults, as people, is that take chances. Take classes just because you love them. I took a sociology class. I took a pottery class just to learn what speaks to me. And I'll ask you to question yourself on this. As students that are going into college, do not do it for the money. Don't. You will not be happy long term. You might get things and you might, make it rain for a little bit, but it will not give you happiness. If the world was perfect and you did not need money, that's the job you want to choose. That's what you want to choose because you're going to get up every day excited and be like, I'm excited to go take that exam because that's one step closer to my future. Ask yourself that question.
Thank you. So, in addition to our, studies and, how we should prepare to, get into college, especially, for the students that are curious about, those careers. And, I know a lot of them may have the question of, how does a typical day at your job look like? I know that I want to go into engineering, but what exactly do you do? Or, as a mental health therapist, what exactly do you do, in IT? So if you guys can just describe how a typical day may look. I know a lot of days can be different, but if you could just give them an idea of how, what they could expect for someone entering into your career, that would be great.
Sure, I get on Facebook and then, no. Or check Instagram, right. No, I think my job, one of the reasons I like my job is because there's something new every day. So I'm not doing the same thing every day of the week. There's some people that do the same thing every day. They love it. God bless them. For me, I needed a little bit of variety. So, for example, my job as a data scientist at Northrop was people would give me a whole bunch of data, and they would say, hey, we're having a problem, figuring out what's going on with all the computers. Here's all the computer data. Tell us what's going on with our computers. And then I would sit there and try to figure out, kind of like a detective, right? And figure out what's really going on, what's happening. So I would try and piece together the different data, try to sort through it, read it, maybe like put them together, turn it upside down. I'm doing all kinds of things because I'm basically doing research, right? I don't know what the answer is going to be, but I'm working on trying to find a solution so that I can help whatever problem or business case we're trying to solve. So a typical day for me, obviously is like, one, talking to other people, figuring out, hey, what's the problem that we're trying to solve today? What is the thing that we're trying to do? Getting on the same page with your team. Sorry to say, if you don't like working on a team today, it's not going to change. You're always going to be on a team. There's no I in team. You could be the superstar, you could be an Einstein wherever you're at, but you're always going to have to work with people. So I think now, today, is the best time to learn, to relate with other people, talk to other people, work with other people, collaborate, be open about sharing. So that's one thing I do at work. Another thing is being able to think, being able to write down my thoughts and basically like journal, almost like a scientific notebook, and say, this is my process for today, and this is how I'm going to solve it. So being able to come up with logical steps to say, this is the problem, this is the solution, this is what I'm going to do, and having the discipline to execute that. And then finally, it's actually just doing the work. So a lot of it for me is coding. And so some preparation for you guys might be learning how to write code, software, or build things, or take things apart, like I said. So my day is a mix of all of that. It's very interesting. I like it. And that's it. Who's next? Go ahead.
A typical day for me. I like to use humor. Anybody watch Jerry Springer? So a typical day for me, I tend to go hard because I'm very passionate about what I do. I'm very excited when I walk into my office. Typical day is I have a patient/client come in, and we talk about what's going on in their life, what's bothering them, what's the challenge they have, what your mama say, what he say to you, why you gonna leave him. And this is what we talk about, but there's a science behind it, because it's not just talking to people and having empty conversations. What I tend to do is I take notes on a pad or just up here, and it's more so about taking data on their symptoms. How many times this week were they sad? 3 times, 4 times, and I chart that. How many times were they crying? How many times did they not want to get out of bed? How many times did they have an anxiety attack? How many times did they get angry with their mom? And I chart those. That's what our data is. I take that data and I tend to see how better or worse the client is doing on their mental health. Besides that, there is a lot of paperwork. There is a lot of paperwork as a mental health professional. And this comes into play because to keep the therapist honest, but also provide the best health care. Anyone in here ever go see the doctor? You probably see them for maybe max 10, 15 minutes. Why? Because the rest of that time is spent doing paperwork. And the science behind that is really just documentation, knowing where we're going with this treatment. There's a large part of being a therapist that is being accurate and being on time with your paperwork, but also being there in the room present with the patient and knowing what is going on here. How can I lead them in the right direction? Overall, my day-to-day, it's super fun. You never know. It's literally like a new episode every day with a client. You never know what you're gonna get. And I have to say that I have grown from my clients. They share with me the funniest things, the most deepest and saddest and happiest moments. For a therapist, we call it the sacred space, because in there, it's so private, nobody else knows about that except us, the therapist and the client. And that is what's special to me in my day and day.
So a typical day for me, it just depends. I think like everybody else, every day is different. Some days we are working on launches for shoes. We have a couple of apps that we are consumer-facing apps. We spend a ton of time thinking about what that you guys like. So what are the trends? What kinds of things should we be doing next? So I can spend a morning working on what's going to happen with a Jordan launch, and then the afternoon working on what's going to happen for Air Max Day. It just depends on what's happening with us that day. This past week, the entire team is here. We're working on our Nike React race, which is tomorrow. We're shutting down the 90 freeway for the first time since 1980, since the Olympics, to do a 10K race. And the race is actually focused around kids and play. So the focus is to get kids up and get them moving. And we've done this race many, many times. It's kind of, vamped over the years. It used to be the Nike Women's Marathon, but this year it's the Nike React race, and it's focused around kids and around this community. And so the race actually starts starts in Culver City. You'll run down the 90, turn around and come back. There's some great prizes for the finishers. And so from a technology perspective, we've got websites that are going live. We've got instructions going out. We've got people out in the stores helping folks to get ready for tomorrow's race. We've got, shoes that are being featured and videos and imagery that are coming out around the race. And so from a technology perspective, we're the machine that drives all of that. And so every day can be different. There have been days when I've been up in Portland, which is where our campus is, and I've been walking around and I ran into Kyrie Irving. And being a Golden State fan, I wasn't super happy about that. But it's one of those things where it's a great perk of the job. So when you think about technology and you think about STEM, there are tons of really fun things that you can be doing at really great places. And so this is not something I thought I would end up doing, but really get outside of the box and think about where you can end up and what you can end up doing. The other thing that is sometimes super fun is that if I'm down at our office in Costa Mesa with the Hurley team and the waves are going, everybody stops what they're doing and they go out and surf. And so we spend a ton of time focused around making wetsuits and making items that help us keep warm during the cold, keep folks from getting rash burn. And so a lot of my time is also spent doing that with that team, making sure that they have the technology to fuel innovation.
Great, thank you for that. So next, before we conclude our panel discussion, I'd like to open it up for a few questions. Anyone in the audience have some questions for our panelists?
Go ahead.
One question right here. You can go ahead.
You mentioned a little bit about your parents, but you mentioned a little bit, because I know there's some parents in the audience, and as an educator, I work a lot with parents. Can you talk a little bit about what your parents or your parent yourself, what you start doing to start motivating your child to engage educational-wise, or what they did as an act of wealth that led you to where you're at right now?
So, for my parents, they were immigrants, Nigerian immigrants. So I grew up in an African household. And if you know anything about Nigerians, they preach education. So, and the one thing that my dad told to me, he was like, son, they could take away everything from you in this world. They could take your house, you could take your money, but education, they can never, ever, 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 ever take from you. And so from an early age, he was always, both of my parents actually, they would give me extra homework when I would get home, because they were like, oh, this is obviously not enough. So I was doing algebra problems in third grade. And then I was doing calc in 8th grade, and then my parents would take me to crazy stuff like this, and I was like, why are we here? But then I was also interested. So I think for parents, it's about being involved, figuring out what it is that your kids like to do, pushing them. Obviously communicating with educators at the school to figure out is the curriculum enough? Are they learning the right thing at the right time? My parents, they looked for all of the best schools that they could find, because I grew up in the New York City public school system, which I guess is kind of like LA unified. It's not so good, not bueno at all. So they did a lot of research as to what schools to put me in. They were always in the parent-teacher conference. They never sided with me. Anytime the teacher was like, oh, he did something wrong, they turned to me and was like, why did you do that? And I was like, but I didn't do that. You don't believe me? No, we don't believe you. But obviously they have my back, and that all worked out for good. But I will say also that kids are different. I responded well to some things that my little brothers didn't necessarily do. So while for me, extra homework was the thing, other people may be a little bit more hands-on, or might need tutoring on the side, or might need a little extra help, or they just they learn a little bit differently. Maybe they're visual learners, or maybe they learn by repetition or learn by memory. Not everybody learns the same way. So I think for parents and educators, kind of figuring out how your kid processes and understands things, what they're interested in, being relevant to them, getting them involved. I think that always kind of helps them, open up and do wonderful things. So.
So for me, I think my parents kind of adopted that be where your kids are mentality. And so I understand that a little bit better now. Where we were, that's where my parents were. So if I had grown up in the social media age, my parents would have been on Snapchat with us. And they would have known how to use it. They would have had filters. They would have been there with us. And so I think one of the things that I can say, and particularly because my other area of expertise is cybersecurity, is go where your kids are. Learn what they know, engage them where they are, because what you'll find out is you'll find lots of points of convergence between your interest and what you'd like them to do and what they are actually interested in. You got to get on the ground floor with them because your level of engagement is so important to them. The amount of attention that you can give them is going to help fuel them, and that's really also how innovation happens. And so you'll find that if you can get where they are and be where they are as much as you can, I think that's a big, huge key to helping them be successful, because you'll also understand when they're starting to pivot as well. You'll see the lights come on for them. And so as much as we all want our kids to, to be engineers, because that's what my parents wanted me to be too, we have to be mindful of what they're interested in as well. And so get on the ground with them, get where they are, be where they are, encourage their interest. Like you, I did a ton of stuff like this. I did field trips. I was at Mesa. I've been a NSBE member. And so I think these things are things that have carried me throughout my life. They're memberships that I've had for a lifetime. And that came from my parents literally being like, this is where we're going today. And I think that is super important. And my dad at 70 is still incredibly nosy. Yesterday he was talking to me about Cardi B and Bernie Sanders. So. I mean, he still gets into a space where I am, even though I'm almost 40. He still spends a ton of time making sure that he connects with me.
Thank you.
In speaking to the question about the parents and background, I want to speak to two things. I'm blessed that I came from a two-parent household. Now, for those of you that come from a one-parent household, 80% of my caseload has a one-parent household for the adolescents and teenagers I work with. And in regards to the support, hear me out on this. The most beautiful thing you can receive from your parents is support, emotionally, but also their example. Role models are the most important thing right now for you. If you see your mom and she got 2 jobs and she's still there for you, hold it down for her. Do the best you can in school. Because a lot of people think, oh, well, she never has time for me, she's never there. She's hustling for you. And that goes for the single fathers out there. A lot of people like to say, men of color, they ain't there for their babies, they're not there for their kids. That's not true. I have a lot of men in my practice, they hold it down for their kids. It's role models. My parents came to this country to give us a better life. As I mentioned, I come from a 2-parent household. They work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. I saw their hustle. They didn't have to tell me or pull me aside and say, look, sweetheart, this is what we're doing for you. No, I saw that example and I knew what it is I wanted. I wanted to have a better life and opportunity than they did. This is the mentality that immigrants have in this country. And if you were born here, you have an extra advantage, and it's a beautiful thing. LA has a melting pot of people. What beautiful colors do we have in this room? And for the parents, the most important thing to remember is to let your child choose. Children are a gift. They are borrowed. They are not to be controlled. Let your children choose what it is their passion is.
Thank you. Very good. And then we may have time for just one more question. Another question? Okay.
My question is, how is it being a person of color in a STEM field?
So
Hard.
I was like, Clarence,
I'll repeat
would you
the
like to
question.
repeat that question?
He said, what is it like being a person of color in a STEM field? And I said, hard. It's not easy. I think part of the problem is STEM doesn't necessarily look like us, right? You don't see a lot of women. You don't see a lot of people of color or anything different. It's a lot of white men, frankly, up top. So I consider us trailblazers, and I hope that us doing this workshop will continue to increase the pipeline so that we bring more of you through. And that maybe in 5, 10, 15 years, when I go to Northrop or Lockheed or Boeing or USC or UCLA or what have you, you know, it's more than like 10, 15, 20% black or Hispanic or Asian or Pacific Islander or Native American or just from outside of America, right? America's slowly browning, but it's taking a long time for STEM to do the same. So my hope is that, you know, it's gonna be hard, it's not gonna be easy, but just know that we're out there, maybe like one or two of us, but we are there. And so the reason we show our faces today is to kind of like, you know, connect. If you see somebody, you know, find a mentor, talk to them. I'm always willing to give advice and like talk you through or walk people through, because I'm hoping that we can make it easier for the people behind us.
That's perfect.
Great, thank you.
Ditto on that one too. I have to agree. I think that when I go to associations or when I network as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and as a female, it's definite. The room does not look like me at all. When people ask, oh, so you know, what school did you go to? And you know, they're telling me about their Ivy League schools, and I went to a Cal State, and then after that I went to a private school for graduate school. Our stories don't match up, and that's all right. It's taken me a while to get used to that, though. And in regards to the question of being of color, I think the most beautiful thing is when people find out what you are capable of doing, and more so in regards to my own personal experience as a woman of color. Because right now, statistics, they say I should have been pregnant on my third baby, maybe a second baby daddy, but that's not the case. I am 100% debt-free, and I have a graduate degree of 8 years. I'll repeat that, I'm debt-free, it's possible, and I am a woman of color.
Very good. And, you know, now we'll go ahead and wrap up the panel. So if you have one quick piece of advice, quick takeaway that you'd like to give the students, please do.
The best piece of advice I can give is talk to people. Be friendly. Go out in your community and ask, what do you do? What do you do? Who do you know? In this world, there's a saying that says it's not what you know, it's who you know. Sort of. It's a little bit of both. So in my career, I would always talk to people like, well, what do you do? Oh, you do that? All right. Just to see if I liked it. But more so, look for a mentor. Look for somebody that is doing what you want to do. Look for examples.
My biggest piece of advice is keep an open mind. If you feel like you're not passionate about something, I would say that's a lie. So find whatever it is that you're passionate about. Like she was saying, if you had all the money in the world, what's that one thing that you would still do free of charge? And that's the thing that you need to pursue. So find your passion, find it fast. And if you feel like you don't have one, talk to somebody, talk to me. I'll help you find it.
So I guess mine is around really staying the course. You miss 100% of the shots that you never take. So shoot your shot. And if you miss, shoot again and keep shooting and keep practicing until you make it. And so, you know, we've said that it isn't gonna be easy. It just absolutely isn't easy. And so know that going into it, but still work hard and stay the course, because you'll look back one day and it'll be you on this stage and you'll be talking to the students of this school as alumni of this school and probably some of the most accomplished people in our community.
Very good, thank you. I would like to thank the panelists again for coming out to speak with you all here. I really hope that you guys have, you know, got your piece of advice to take away, you know, and it now will motivate you to enter into that same career, you know, when you're applying to different colleges. You know, we just hope that today will give you an open mind. You know, if you had never thought about engineering or technology or, you know, IT or mental health, or even the arts, then, you know, just make sure you have an open mind throughout the day. And again, we thank you for coming. We're excited. And next up, I'll bring Brianna, who will discuss the logistics about how we'll go about the rest of our day. Thank you.